Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Monday, the 14th day of November, 2022. I wanted to, I don't know if I mentioned last week that I got a new tarot deck, but it is so cool. I can't remember who makes it. I'll try to remember and tell you, but it's a Rider-Waite deck, obviously, but it's got, ooh, it reflects, doesn't it? Look at that. Yeah. Anyway, I'll hold it this way, this way, then it doesn't reflect. It's got a black background, which is so cool. I love this. They're very thick. The cards are very thick, so the deck is huge. But then, so's this one. It's the same size that I'm using. They're still not broken in yet. Here's the High Priestess, which is very cool. Oh wait, I gotta do it that way. That's very cool. Oh, here's the Tower. But it's just, I love the black background, and I love the colors they use. They're just, it's kind of a nice fall deck. Anyway, I had two others I showed you guys recently that I bought, and they're cool too, but they're a little thinner, especially the one, and one is so slippery it's hard to use, but they're very cool, and I mean they're cool to use in a reading for the blog and stuff. Not so much here. This one, not so much until I get it broke in. But anyway, I hope everyone's doing well. We had snow day before yesterday, and there's still some on the ground, although most of it melted away. That's usually what happens here. It'll snow. It might stay for a couple days, and then it melts. And then, but a few years ago, what was it, 2016 and 17, that winter, we had snow on the ground for like 2 foot of snow for like 2 months. It was nutty. Reminds me of what it was like when we moved here in 81. We had a lot of snow during those years, and it was interesting. I lived in Alaska when I was a child, so I was used to that. But then I've been in Oregon. We moved here when I was, almost 11, and so I've been here ever since. And just depends on where you live. Portland area can get this ice that they get is just they get freezing rain, and it can be just a disaster there. So I don't miss that. We don't really have that here because we're up higher. We're at about 3,000 feet above sea level, so it's a little bit different of being on the high desert. But anyway, I hope everyone's doing well, and if it's cold where you are, I hope you're staying warm and you've got a nice cup of tea with you while you're watching this. Yes, I'm going to reference something that I had in Sunday's esoteric influences. Basically, there was a little bit of a lack of impulse control yesterday that it seemed to be happening, at least for some people, by a partner, not from you, but by a partner. So it's going to reference that when I look at this today here. So for today's esoteric influences, with yesterday's upheaval between you and a partner, again, your partner had some lack of impulse control, maybe. Some changes may be inevitable. Your inner strength will carry you through so that you can successfully resolve the issues at hand. Look to past experiences for relevant insights that support healing between the two of you. You desire a strong protective foundation where you can trust that others will act with integrity and honor. However, it may be up to you to demonstrate those values instead of waiting for your partner to come to that realization. And while you may have some difficult decisions to make going forward, you cannot continue in a situation that compromises your principles. The whole idea is to keep an open mind and an open heart, and hopefully everybody figures it out. Today's magical focus includes feminine magics, the moon governs on Monday. So feminine magics, healing, intuition, cycles, reincarnation, astral travel, balance, and invoking change. So work a spell if you have to. The favorability of working magic today is excellent. And the lunar phase, the waning lunar phase, which is magics of decrease, is also disseminating, and just with disseminating, you're motivated to share knowledge and wisdom with others. So, if you need to work a little spell or a little influence ritual or something like that, you can do that as well to help the situation at hand. I'm just going to move this aside over here. That looks good. Okay. So if this is your first time here, welcome. I appreciate you coming by and watching. And I'd love it if you click subscribe and come back and join our little tarot and rune family. It's just kind of fun to look at how the runes, I use the Elder Futhark and Geomancy, to set the tone for the reading, and then I'll pull 3 cards usually. Sometimes I do 4. Once in a while I'll do 5. Just to see how they all sort of align or don't align or what have you. But it kind of tells a story for the day or for the next few days. Those of you who have come back, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see. Today's rune then from the Elder Futhark is Birkenau. Means the birch tree. Birkenau is the Earth Mother rune of the Elder Futhark. It's an interesting rune. It's comprised of Isa, Laguz. Let's see, I see Vunyo in it. There's the P. You get Kenaz reversed, so inward, turned inward twice, and expressed outward once. So it's a very, very high vibratory rune in that you're what did I say, Laguz? I did. You're really dealing with flowing in spirit and expressing it, both lighting the spirit within and then expressing that outward. It means fertility, family. It can mean the birth of a child. It can mean a pregnancy. So it's bringing something to fruition, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything that is, say you have a project that you're bringing to fruition, or something is coming to its conclusion with Birkenau and is ready to be birthed, basically. So it's a very creative rune. It's about new beginnings. It's about protection. But again, there's an aspect of family to it that's very strong. So we'll see if today's reading has to do with family. Or just that something is coming to fruition, something's being birthed into creation, something's being manifested today. But it's the idea that you've been working on it for a while, and now it's ready to be shown to the world, basically. So maybe, if you were a painter or something, maybe your painting is about ready to be done. Here we have poor. For the Geomancy rune now, I was talking about a lack of impulse control yesterday that you might still be dealing with today from a partner. Maybe there's a breakthrough with that. And again, with it being Birkenau, that's family, so that would match. But here you have poor. When you see the single dots in Geomancy, those are active principles. And so you've got for fire, which is the top one, air. Water is a passive influence because you see 2 dots, and then earth is an active principle. So there's a little bit of a flow. There's allowing for some change with the 2 dots with a passive influence of water here, and so that's why it's sort of a lack of impulse control now in this particular one. Poor. That is it's known as the little boy rune, and Puella would be its complement. The other side of the coin, basically, and that would be the little girl. And so with the little girl, she would be scattered focused, very curious here, there, and everything. Well, the same thing with the little boy. So this is not energy that is, necessarily carved in stone the way, say, Rubius might be. Rubius is more the adult version on the extreme sense, where it's a misuse of force. But with poor, this is scattered little boy energy. This is a lack of impulse control. I raised 2 boys, and although I wouldn't say that they were overly so that way, they had their moments, where they did things, and mama's gotta have an ear to all of it, right? So you can stop them anyway. But that's what we're looking at today. So some scattered little boy energy, maybe a little lack of impulse control. Birkenau is also about healing, and so maybe we're going to heal some of that today. And again, this energetic exchange, if you will, began yesterday. But we'll take a look at the cards and we'll see what they have for us. I don't know if it was on Thursday of last week that I ended up taking 4 cards, or if it was Monday. But one day last week I ended up with 4 cards. It's rare that I end up taking 5, but sometimes I want to know a little more about one of the cards, and so I'll take a card that's specifically giving more information about one particular card. But we'll see. I've already done some shuffling too, by the way. I tend to do that when I sit here for a little bit before I get started and I shuffle the cards. And sometimes I use the tuning forks. I have a tuning fork. This one is actually keyed to the third eye. And I'll listen to that for a little bit, and that gets me in the mood, and open up the crown and the third eye chakra. But tuning forks are great. I like to use them when I do Reiki on my husband. I'll also tune the biofield around him, and he likes that. It tends to it calms him down in a way that I mean the Reiki does too. I also use Kanza wands on him. They're also fun. I'll show you what one looks like here. This is a Kanza wand. This is a big one. These you can use on the feet and on the body. There's a smaller one I have for smaller areas, like on the face, and then there's one, a really tiny one, and I don't have that one. But they're great because you put oil on them, on the brass side of them, and on the person, and you just massage that area for a little while, and it really tends, especially if you're working on the soles of the feet, he can feel that clear up his body, which is very cool. So anyway, enough of that nonsense. Well, it is a swords extravaganza today. Oh joy. So again, if there was some issues from yesterday and maybe continuing today that needs some healing between you and a partner, I've got my tea here, then having swords today tells me that there's some issues. There's communication issues, maybe, or trust issues, or whatever. I think that you know what? I'm gonna start with I'm gonna move the middle one to the beginning. We have the 3 of Swords, the 4 of Swords, and the 10 of Swords, and you'll see why I did that. Because I think that there could have been some betrayal, or you may feel betrayed. Now, this is generally gossip, slander, but it doesn't have to be. It could be some expectations that were that were not lived up to, maybe, and that those could be represented by these 2 swords here, because you see, there's one sword that's actually in the front, piercing the heart. But the 3 of Swords is about betrayal in some way. So whatever lack of impulse control the partner had yesterday, again, some change is probably going to need to be made here. Either some realization on the part of your partner, or a change in how you see it, or what have you, or choices you may need to make. And so it's kind of interesting that I would draw these particular cards here today, but I think that they're relevant, and so I'm glad I did. It gives us a little bit more information about maybe what is being dealt with. But here you see the clouds, the darker clouds above. It's raining. So, there's some emotion, there's some change, and that change is involving some betrayal. So, moving to the 4, then you see the it looks like we'll just call it the knight is resting on the top of a casket, but actually it's probably one of those caskets where they put some kind of a statue, if you will, of the individual that's within the casket. But here, this is about contemplation. This is about letting your thoughts settle. Trying to come up with something that's maybe a little more higher awareness oriented. You see the stained glass there that indicates a church, but at the same time, this is probably the crypt, the big crypt that they're in, if you want to call it that. And usually you'll see the king and you'll see the queen in there both, and you'll see the type of stone casket with the stone creation of them on top, on each one. And here you see the fourth sword here down below. But you're allowing your thoughts to settle. You're allowing them to come to rest. Four is kind of about that, about foundation and grounding and rest and all of that. So just allowing things to settle. So the swords is the air element, reflects the air element. So you're talking about the mental aspect of things, the intellect, reason, fairness, balance, justice, all of that. But when you see swords, it can also mean argument. Usually, or some kind of chatter that's up to no good, right? Or some kind of reasoning that's up to no good. And usually you see that with the odd numbered cards. With the even number cards, so here you have with the 3 an odd number card, something's happening here, and you've made the realization that you've been betrayed. People are, talk, maybe behind your back, typically, or there could be a love triangle that's going on, or what have you. The kinds, you understand what I'm saying, but you have the triplicity of it. You have 2 people versus the 1, in other words. So whatever this, but if this is referring to what was going on yesterday in the esoteric influences, then basically now you're going to think about it. Okay, you're going to come to some understanding that's a greater understanding. You're going to give yourself time for all the emotions to settle, all of your mind to settle, so that you can see things a little more realistically. Again, that would be air, and that would be swords. But you can see the difference in energy between the odd and the even number, between the 3 and the 4. So then you've made your decision, right? And now you have you've decided you've gone as far as you're going to go with whatever this is. And the change that we talked about here, that basically you may need to make, this is while you may have some difficult decisions to make going forward, you cannot continue in a situation that compromises your principles, which is essentially this card. It's just telling you, at some point, whatever happens here, some decisions need to be made between you and a partner, and whatever that's in. I mean, it may not be a love partner. It could be a good friend. It could be someone at work, a business partner. It could be any kind of partnership. Maybe you're doing something with a neighbor or something, a project with a neighbor, and the neighbor's, going off on his own or her own, doing their own thing, and it's not really in alignment with the decisions you guys made in the beginning. So this could be any kind of partnership. So don't necessarily think it's a love partnership, although this would signify that it is, but it could also signify that, it's something that you're both committed to. And there's some nonsense with poor in the little scattered little boy, lack of impulse control, where one is doing something the other that's not workable for the other. Okay. So, and you may feel betrayed by the whole thing. It's like, well, no, we said this and now you've gone and done that and it can't be undone, that kind of thing. So this could be not specifically a love partner, but it could be. But here you see the person laying on the ground next to the water's edge. The water is smooth, so the emotions are level now. And all of the swords, all of the perceptions, all of what you thought are piercing you in the back. And you've come to the conclusion that I've gone as far as I can go and something new has to happen. Now that's Birkenau, perhaps. Some healing has to take place. I know this looks bad, but it's really not. You see the night is beginning to lift. You don't see the sun yet, but you see the yellow background here. So it's implied that the sun is starting to come up. And it could even theoretically be behind the clouds here. You see the gray clouds here being revealed as the night lifts, basically. You see the mountains in the background. So although you have... you've gone through it, certainly, but maybe you in your time of rest with the 4, it's possible that you came to a different understanding about what was going on. And maybe there's an element of dropping resistance to the whole thing in both the 4 and the 10. Um, and just letting things maybe be as they are, and giving that other person space to come to the realizations that he or she needs to have. And it's possible that's reflected here as well. They've decided that, well, okay, I've done too much. I've gone too far. I'm outside, what the agreements were, and now I need to let go of perceptions that are causing me to do that, or enabling me to do that, or are the foundation for me to do that. So this could actually involve, the other individual as well in the 10. On the other hand, it could also apply to the individual themselves that's dealing with this kind of stuff. And with the 10, you've got the implied endings and beginnings. With the 9, it's definitely endings. There you have the person sitting up in bed holding their head, and it shows the swords all in the 9 swords in a balanced pattern there. And it's basically you're waking up from a nightmare. And then at that point, you let go of perceptions that no longer serve, and you begin anew. So with the betrayal, maybe you discover that another way of seeing it, and maybe dropping some resistance to it and trying to see something positive in it. How you perceived it as betrayal, maybe that was overly so. Maybe it really wasn't. Maybe you're making more of the situation than what it truly is. But on the other hand, if you're not, and I mean, it really was something that, hey, that's just outside our agreement, whatever, our partnership agreement, whatever that is. Again, whether it's work or with a friend or a loved one, your spouse or your partner, or a neighbor or whatever that you're involved in. With Birkenau here, there's the idea of bringing something to fruition and birthing something new. So, again, there could be some kind of letting go of your own perceptions. If, say, your partner's acting in ways that just you're not comfortable with. Well, it doesn't mean that you're going to be comfortable with it, but at the same time, maybe some of it is based in your own perception too. So I think that there's some sorting out that needs to happen. and some of that I think is happening in the 4. But again, I think that the interesting thing about tarot is that, and even about the runes, it may seem like these things are happening to you, but you might be the one that's actually doing it. And again, with swords and having a run on swords here, some of this is perception based, how you want to see it. And it doesn't mean that how you want to see it isn't fair or realistic, but sometimes we make an issue out of something that really doesn't need to have an issue be made out of it, right? We react to something maybe overly so when, okay, it's not really, it's just another way of seeing something or another way of doing something. But the idea that with Birkenau is that there has to be some healing here. So even if it's some healing of your own perception here a little bit, or it's the healing of the perceptions of the other person who's acting in ways that really aren't benefiting the two of you and the agreement you have with one another. It just seems to me that when I see so many swords, they're you just have to be a little careful who you assign blame to, and where the most responsibility lies. Oftentimes there's responsibility with both parties. And so, one to maybe not be as judgmental, and the other, or reactionary maybe, and the other to, knock off the crap, we agreed to this and now you're doing that. And it's like, wait a minute, that's not what we agreed to. So So again, though, with the 10, the light's returning, and maybe after the rest period with the 4, you're able to see what's going on a little more clearly and make the decisions you need to make. I mean, heck, if you and a work partner or someone that you're a neighbor or a friend that you're working on a project with, I mean, maybe you can't work with them anymore, because maybe the other person just can't work in sync with other people. There's that. And so maybe the realization you come to is that you're doing something with somebody that just isn't realistic to begin with. They're not going to be able to to let go of their lack of impulse control, and you can't handle that. So another type of an agreement has to be made, or something. Another decision has to be made. But again, with Birkenau, you're talking about two big things: bringing something to fruition, whatever that is, letting something come to its moment of birth, even if it's inner awareness, even if it's your own perception. Maybe you've been seeing this person in a way that's never been realistic, and now you have this moment of betrayal that's the catalyst to be able to do that, to see them realistically, and to let go of perceptions that are no longer even appropriate for them, and to find a different path forward. And it doesn't have to mean that your partner cheated on you. It doesn't have to mean that at all. It can just mean that you had expectations of that person that, they're never going to live up to. Say you have a woman has a spouse that won't stick up for them or something, won't speak up. It's just not in their wheelhouse to do it. Maybe they want to, but maybe in that moment they just can't do it. They clench, and it's their own inner fear at work, and they can't assert themselves in that difficult moment. I've seen that happen. And it isn't that person doesn't want to, it's just that they can't. They have their own, stuff from childhood. Maybe they had an authoritarian parent or something like that, and dealing with difficult moments is just, it just puts them into a panic mode. So again, if something like that were to be the case, you have this reflection on that, and you come out of it with some understanding, and so you let go of the need for that to happen, because it's not going to. And if you continue expecting it, you're going to always be disappointed, right? When instead this gives you a moment to extend love and healing and compassion to your partner, and understand, what, that's just a really difficult thing for them. And so I can't look to that person to, be my savior, so to speak, or to be my champion or something. Not because they don't want to be, but just because they can't do it. And we've all been in that moment, where we've needed to speak up on someone's behalf, and the situation is just such that you're just kind of transfixed by it, and you can't do it, and you don't do it. And then afterwards you feel really awful. It's like, God, I should have said something, So I think we've all been in those moments where that can happen, and there's a certain level of letting one another off the hook for things like that. Obviously there's extreme situations where they just stand there and they do nothing, and they just aren't going to do it. That's a different thing, because they're just not that person. They're not going to put themselves out there. That's a different thing, right? So don't confuse the two. But I think that maybe whatever the betrayal was, you think about it, and then you let your perceptions settle on it, and maybe think about things in a new way. And the other thing that comes into my mind at this point is, maybe these are situations that have been ongoing, and a decision has to be made. It's like, well, okay, if it's at work, it's like, well, maybe I can't work with this person on projects. It's not going to work out. I can't trust them to do their part, and they're off doing other things, and they leave it all to me. And so upon reflection, maybe you talk to the boss and say, listen, I think if we can't figure this out, maybe we need to not work on stuff together. Maybe I need to have a different partner. but on the other hand, you've let go of the perceptions at that point that are not that don't work anymore, and you let them come to rest, and you allow the new day to dawn, and new awareness, you know new understanding to happen, no matter what the conclusion is going to be out of it, because I don't know yet. So but the point is that, and I think the last line of today's esoteric influence really apply here. While you may have some difficult decisions to make going forward, you can't continue in a situation that compromises your principles, and that may be related to this, where it's just like, okay, I've done what I can do, and I got to think of something else now. So anyway, hopefully it's not too extreme and not too life changing, but sometimes that's what happens, and you do the best you can. But again, give yourself time once you see what happened, to let your thoughts come to rest, and really, let go of, drop resistance to what's going on, so that your emotions are not involved in it. The emotions tend to keep us in a place where it's difficult for us to see things clearly. Some of it could be your own, and if you're the one doing the betraying, you need to rethink things. You need to rethink how you're interacting with your partner, whatever partner that is, and see if you're truly living in service to that experience and to that person, or if you're just too scattered to do that, and you're here, there, and everywhere, and you can't really be dependent upon. That's another thing that this could mean, a lack of dependability. And with poor, that would definitely be a lack of dependability. So lots of ways to see this, and but again, keep it in mind. It may not be you that this is it might not be you that's this is happening to. It could be somebody you know. So if it is that, then you can recommend, just before you make any decisions, let your emotions settle, let your thoughts settle, get a little more grounded, keep the emotion out of all of it, and then see and allow for a new data form, and to understand that maybe, there's some other ways that they can see this. So anyway, that's a lot for a Monday, don't you think? Good Lord. Well, it's been an interesting time, with the election and all of that. It's just been, I'm sure it's emotional for people that didn't win, and everyone else is on pins and needles to see who's gonna retain control of the House. And although we know Democrats will retain control of the Senate, they're feeling positive about the House, but we'll see. More numbers are coming in, more votes are coming in, they have to be tallied. I don't know when that has to be done. Maybe by tomorrow or something. I don't know what the deadline is. I saw something about Tuesday. Tuesday's the last day. So, but it may be after that. Maybe Friday. So I don't know. It may differ in each of the areas we all live in. So I don't know. We have vote by mail here, and we can either take it to a drop box, or we can put it in the mailbox or something. But it's just so much easier. We don't worry about it. And it'd be nice to think that, all the votes will be counted the night of, but they're not. You've got overseas votes, you've got military votes. They all have to matter. They all voted. So they all have the expectation that it's going to matter. So we all just have to be patient and not expect to know everything right away. I don't watch the news anymore for the returns to come in. We didn't watch it this year at all. It's just too stressful. It's too frenetic. I can't do it, so we don't. So I occasionally I'll look and see, okay, I think Oregon's all been decided, except maybe a couple of the measures, but maybe it's all been decided now. I don't know. We did a gun control thing here, regarding having to have a permit, and involving the state police in writing those rules and doing all of that. And it appears to have passed. We'll see. We already have 3 sheriffs that have already decided we're not going to enforce it. Then resign. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I don't get that. To me, I'm just a rule of law person. So if it's a law, it's a law. I don't know, but that's just me. Anyhow, um, but thanks for watching. And again, if it's your first time here, I hope you'll click subscribe and come back and give it a like, if you will. The YouTube algorithms like that, I guess. Anyway, and come back again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. There, I can say it. So be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.